Hi guys, it's Jen with Convicted Hearts. I'm here today with a very special guest who I'm going to discuss some of the recent events with the Cain Velasquez case, as well as some details that you may not be familiar with when it comes to some individuals like the accused, meaning not Cain, but the person who is alleged to have assaulted his child. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Rich. Do you mind giving us a little background of your history?
Sure. I was a law enforcement officer for 38 years. I was a detective for the last 25 of those, and I was assigned to sex crimes, human trafficking, and domestic violence the last 20 years of my career.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
Yeah, and I belonged to some state task forces.
Okay.
So I was real active in this.
Yeah. So I know we spoke briefly about this case, but really what it comes down to from what I've read is this individual, Cain Velasquez, is the father of one of the victims in this case, where there was a daycare in Morgan Hill, and there was said to be about 20 children attending that daycare. And one of the children came forward and told his or her father, I'm not sure how you guys normally refer to them, a perpetrator or the abuser. Suspect, okay. So there we go. The suspect was actually either released with no bail or had a very low bail. So the families of the children were extremely upset that he walked. This created a situation where somehow, some way, Mr. Velasquez ended up in basically a situation where he was tailing the vehicle that had the suspect and his parents in it. He's alleged to have hit the vehicle, and then he is alleged to have shot 2 bullets into the vehicle. So he's charged with attempted murder right now.
Okay.
And his bail, well, actually, he wasn't given any bail. So that's also another point that people are pretty upset with.
Several things at work here. First of all, the suspect is only a suspect. He hasn't been convicted of anything. And we have to keep that in the back of our minds, whether we like it, whether we don't. When I would do a case, I would have suspects, but until that suspect was convicted, he was just a suspect. You have to be really careful with your terminology and your reactions to it. We don't ever want to try a case in the court of public opinion. Can I explain why he had a reduced bail or released on his OR? No, I can't explain that. But I've seen courts do things similar in cases that I've had.
Right.
The no bail, because I'm assuming there was a weapon used besides the car.
Yes, he did have a firearm that was registered to him, but he 2 bullets struck the stepfather who was driving, so it didn't hit the person he intended it to hit.
See, that's problematic.
Yeah.
When you use a gun, it puts you in a whole different arena. But there again, he hasn't been convicted of anything, but we have probable cause to believe and accuse him of this. But we're only making an accusation. He hasn't been tried in court.
Right.
Okay? But bail is set at, they actually have a scale as to when you check somebody in, and it's based on a lot of factors. One of the factors are how many felonies are there. Okay? Violent crimes, it automatically just goes up.
Yeah.
It not to say that the suspect, the original suspect with the daycare case, I'm not saying that it's not a violent crime. I think any time that you commit a crime upon a child, or let's just say that you've been convicted of that, it's a violent crime. It's a traumatic thing.
Yeah.
So I can't explain why a judge would give him a reduced bail.
Right.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But not everything is equal under our system. But the enhanced bail for using a firearm is appropriate. I understand there's a lot of emotion in this case, that this guy was reacting for his daughter. But people have to understand that when you do that, you can no longer support your daughter. She is going to go through a lot of things in the process ahead, testifying.
Yeah.
And Dad can't be there.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm not sure if it's a daughter or son. All I know is, and some people are even referring to the child as just a family member.
Right.
But
And
it's a
that's
4-year-old. Yeah, I think it's a 4-year-old child. I do know that.
Okay. And it's an appropriate reaction for Daddy. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an understandable reaction. But if we can just step back from what's in front of us and realize to support our child, if you're locked up, you can't do that. This child has a lot of things ahead. To include, it's not just court. It's maybe therapy, maybe counseling, maybe that's not even needed. Maybe they can deal with it as the family unit.
Right.
But there's a lot of things that people have to establish with their family before they can do that. Number one, we got to put our cell phones down and our TVs and listen to our children. That's critical.
All right.
So if he was there, he could be listening to the child.
Yeah. During the healing.
During the healing, and which with some kids, the healing seems to go fairly quickly. With other children, it doesn't go so quickly.
Right.
But then again, we never know, are we going to have PTSD 20 years later?
Yeah.
So there's always fallout from these crimes. And it's not just the victim, it's the family too.
Yeah, the family unit, there's more than one child and a wife involved as well, and I'm sure extended family. I don't know how, you would interview a 4-year-old, and I tried to wrap my head around that, but I do know that it's alleged that the child said this happened over 100 times, or up to, I'm not sure how. Okay.
I can answer that.
Sure.
In the late 80s, early 90s, there was a famous case down in Southern California. Allegations made towards, happened to be a daycare center. Okay? And the interviews were done by people that were in, like, therapists and counselors. What we found out was, not intentionally, but the questions were leading, that you can lead a child down a certain path just by suggesting something like, if I was to say to a child in an interview, gee, did he like the pink little dress that you were wearing? I have just planted in that child's mind that they were wearing a pink dress.
Oh, okay.
The appropriate question is, what were you wearing? There's a tremendous difference in that.
Yeah, I can see how that would be.
I went through that, and the state of California has certified forensic interviewers, examiners, and I actually am a forensic examiner.
Okay.
So how can you solicit or get information from a child that's 4 years old?
Yeah.
It can be done.
Okay, good.
It's not the first time.
Just a very sensitive, oh man.
How do you come up with 100 times? It really depends on the case, but sometimes you can establish it by, I'm throwing out examples. Your birthday, when did you get a new puppy, Christmas, Easter, going to school, going to kindergarten. Those are timelines.
Okay.
And they're innocent. It's not leading the child into anything.
Right.
But when you can use it as timelines, because the child isn't going to know March from April.
Right. Got it. I think that obviously across the board, people of all different backgrounds, we can all agree that we don't know how we would react had we been the parent in this situation. But I'd like to focus more on the suspect that committed this crime towards the children. And I have heard that it's more than one child in that facility already who's come forth. And the suspect, Harry Goularte, I believe is his name, had made a statement to investigators that he was only helping the children pull their pants up in the restroom. Is that a kind of typical answer from these type of individuals?
I've done probably 5,000 interviews with sex offenders. Either they're already convicted or prior to conviction or another conviction. They always look for the easy way out. I mean, it's like you go to jail or you go to a place and they collect together, and what are you using? Well, I was helping them pull their pants up, or they were taking a nap on my lap, which I don't need to go any further with that. Yeah. With those kind of things, and chomos want to minimize their crime. Okay? They don't want you and me to look at them like you're an ugly piece of garbage in humanity. And when I was a detective, I couldn't do that. I could never let that show.
Or they would probably just shut down and not talk at all, or?
Well, it makes for really bad interviews. Okay. The law and order interviews aren't real accurate. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to bring us into the real world. Yes. Do I know people that have used the good cop, bad cop routine? Yeah. But the best interviews are those that you just let people talk, because the longer they talk, the easier it is to get them, catch them in a lie, catch them in inconsistency. And I'm surprised that information leaked out.
Okay.
It should have never leaked out. This case hasn't even come close to adjudication.
No.
So if it hasn't come too close to adjudication, that information could be damaging to the case. I mean, I would have never released that. And sometimes the press takes their own license, okay? You say something and they hear it this way, and that's what they put out. So I'm not even saying that the officers involved said that.
Right.
It could be something they said and the press wanted to hear what they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So you have lots of forces at work here.
Right.
But you release information. It's not that we hold back information, but you have to walk that fine line of, am I going to damage this case? And it's not damaging my case. Yeah. It's damaging a case for the people of the state of California for that victim.
Right. Yeah.
That's the most important thing right there.
Right. So basically having your eye on the prize is like the end of wrapping the case up. You want to keep it kind of tight-lipped until you can achieve a conviction with these people, these monsters. With a daycare of that size, are they going through and speaking to every child, do you think, that he was in the presence of?
My best guess would be yes.
Okay.
My best guess is knowing I'm familiar with the county that this is happening in. I trained with a lot of people up there. I know that they have, it's called the multiple disciplinary approach. That's a mouthful. But basically it's the forensic interviewing that I talked about a while ago.
Right.
So I know that they have an interview center, and I am sure that they bring those kids in. And like I said, not plant thoughts in their brain. That's important that we don't do that. But there's ways that you can get kids comfortable when they talk.
Yeah.
The same as a parent. If you just pay attention to the child, will tell you. And that should be the goal of a parent, that the child never holds back from you at all, and that they feel safe. And if you get really excited and go off and do things, that's sending the message to the child that you've done something wrong. I know that we don't think that way as adults, but that's in the mind of the child. It's important that we don't do that.
Yeah, definitely. With the guy Harry, the suspect in this case, he's I think 43 years old. I don't know if he's ever been caught doing something like this before, but do you think that they'll even look at maybe his old addresses he's been connected to and possibly speak with children in different places?
I don't know what they're going to do. I can tell you what I would do.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's hear that. Yeah.
I had a case years ago before I retired, and we went to a different county, arrested the bad guy, went to court. He pled it out, but it was one count, and it was a child that was familiar to him, very familiar. It was a family member. Okay. So, based on that information, and based on understanding the whole molest chomo mentality and what they do, I looked at the case, and I tracked back. I found one victim from 1964 living in the Midwest. That counted against him.
Really?
Yeah. That led to a historical case against him. It was never charged.
Okay.
And the victim was shocked that he or she was contacted by law enforcement.
Really?
And quite relieved that they could get it off their chest.
Yeah, I bet. After that amount of time, it
didn't have to play out here, didn't have to do anything. Just our unit actually received a congressional award on that case.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. That's really amazing. I also heard, I don't know if this plays into it, that allegedly the DA in that area right now is a very soft on crime type of person. I don't know if that could play into what ends up happening here with the suspect, but
that county, not likely.
Really?
No, I mean.
So that could just be some hearsay or rumors.
Yeah. There's a lot of rumors that they gain their own life.
Yeah.
We say something and it gains its own life as we go. Well, because this guy was released on a low bail or posted nothing and got out, from that it spins off into, well, we got a soft DA. Well, the DA really has nothing to do with that. Okay. Unless they worked on a bail enhancement, which is a totally different subject. Yeah. But I think that you have to put your faith in something. Okay. And on earth, we have to put our faith in the people that are doing the work. And our prosecutors, we have to assume that they are aggressive prosecutors. I know law enforcement in that county are aggressive people.
Okay.
The prosecutors I've worked with in that county are aggressive. So I have a hard time kind of fathoming this person not being aggressive. I mean, I think we might be drawing conclusions based on what happened.
I think so, yeah. The suspect, Harry Goularte, so he is not incarcerated right now. What do you think most likely? Does he have an ankle monitor? Is he being watched? What are the possibilities? Or is he's not just out able to do his own thing, right?
That's really hard to say.
Okay.
It really changes from county to county. He hasn't been convicted of anything. That being said, all my flags would be up.
Yeah.
But that also being said, is everybody has a ton of cases that they're doing. You can only monitor things to a point.
Right.
This is not a cure-all. It never is.
Yeah. I had heard that he was supposed to be on an ankle monitor, but I was just curious as to what kind of pressure is put on someone like that while they're awaiting their own.
Well, okay, they're not on probation. They're not on parole. Okay, so your Fourth Amendment rights to search and seizure kind of kick in. Okay, you have to have numerous things to bypass the Fourth Amendment. You're not even bypassing it, but you have to have an exigency of circumstances, reason to believe that something is going to occur, and we could, as logical people, we could go, well, this happened, so it's going to occur.
Right.
We can't say that for certain.
Okay.
We're not allowed to. I mean,
yeah.
But is he monitored? Let's just assume for the moment that he's high on the radar. And I think to a point.
Yeah.
But there's only so much law enforcement can do. We can only work within the law. You can't break the law to enforce the law. It just it makes for bad cases, and guys like this walk where we make those kind of mistakes. It's really important to understand our perspective from law enforcement, that if I'm making constitutional errors, then I'm going to be hurting something, and that's just not right. You stay by the book, basically, but not, I mean, that's kind of in a perfect world, but you do.
Right. With someone like the suspect, like Harry Goularte, I'm just curious, with your past cases, what your answer would be on this. It seems like, from some of the things I've heard, for one, he was living with his mother and stepfather. His mother happened to own a daycare. For two, I've heard that he was coaching t-ball or baseball in his past. Do you find that these alleged chomos or chomos place themselves in situations to have easy access to children?
That's a really loaded question.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a loaded answer.
Okay.
Yes. That being said, I also give credit to people that work with kids, and you know that I've worked with children for years.
Yes.
99.9% of people that coach baseball and football, or dance instructors, or theater instructors, or have a daycare, are good, honest people that are working with children.
Right.
Unfortunately, because they're large gatherings, it's kind of like, if you have a lot of kids, yeah, they're going to gravitate towards that. But when I was on a board, we had standards that we set for this organization, that we put it in granite. It passed the board, and this is the way that we were operating to make sure that children are safe, always, and the caretaker, whoever it was safe. You were never alone with a child, and if you were, you immediately call somebody on the phone. Say, here I am, get down here because this child was left here and I'm kind of stuck.
Got it. Yeah.
So that's the world we live in, and we have to think that way.
Yeah, I think we do. I think a lot of us do think that way. Even I've noticed, even at the schools now, they don't even want teachers hugging children because of the possibility of an accusation or being made to feel a certain way. And sometimes you think, well, that's unfortunate, but these things happen for a reason.
It is unfortunate, and it is very rare that a hug can be a crime. That being said, hugs can be a crime. But it depends on what is in the mind of the perpetrator.
Right. Yeah.
Are you hugging because you're loving and embracing the child because that's acceptable? And I think it is.
Yeah.
Or are you getting some kind of satisfaction out of it?
Right.
You got to know your players. You just do.
Yeah.
If you're working with organizations out there that have kids, I think most of the organizations have gotten wise to, we have to have a standard, because the test is, there's some big organizations that have been sued for about $1 billion. I am not going to name them. Okay. But the standard is, do you have a standard? Do you have something written down? And did you follow it? It's not that you have to cover every base. That's impossible.
Right.
You don't have to cross every T and dot every I. But the question is did you make an effort to safeguard people? Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And just curious, as far as your background in investigating these type of cases, is there always certain case or cases that stick with you? Is it some that are, I imagine it would be, that are far worse than others, or that just hit you differently?
Well, that's a giant monster. The longest anybody should work in this is 5 years. I worked on it for 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, some things just stay with you. It just does. To this day, some things stay with you.
Yeah.
It's impossible to get rid of. Because as a normal parent, grandparent, great-grandparent, I think a certain way. And I work with children in other settings, and we all think a certain way. And it even boggles my mind to think, how could someone do this to a child?
Yeah.
So, there's a few cases that follow you.
Yeah, I'm sure. 20 years is a long time, yeah. Was there ever a situation, maybe, if you can speak on it roundabout, where a parent did react with violence or attempted to when they were notified of their child being harmed?
Not to this degree. The most famous case is the case from the Sierras years ago. The one that shot the perpetrator, the suspect, in court.
The mother.
And she went to prison, and she died in prison, I think, of cancer.
Yeah.
Those cases are really extreme.
I remember that one.
There's not too many of those. We are fortunate because, to me, your family is already disrupted and torn apart.
Yeah.
And if we can just take a step back and gather our parental thoughts, our grandparent thoughts, our leader thoughts, then it may prevent you from taking that next step, because it does more damage than it does good. The child isn't going to walk away thinking, oh, gee, my uncle protected me. I'm just throwing something different out, but that's not what they think. I mean, maybe when they're 25 and think about it, well, yeah, my uncle was protecting me, but he went to prison. What good was that?
Right. Yeah.
I only know of a few cases where that happened locally, but it's never in my cases.
Right.
Physical things, I mean, punching some guy out, that's happened, but
I can imagine. I remember, I mean, it was some years back, but there was a local case here, and it was a daycare, and the suspect was, I can't remember, either the husband or the son. And I remember thinking too, how, as a mom, I thought to myself, how terrifying that you send your kid, to be looked after, cared for, and you can't even rest safely in that, knowing that they're going to,
we live in an imperfect world.
Yeah.
We can't make it perfect as much as we want to for our kids. That's why I say the most important thing a parent can do, it's not, I can't line out, here's safeguards, this is what you should do as a parent.
Right.
The only thing I can say is the most successful cases we've had, and usually with decent recovery, not in all cases, is where the parent is still a parent. It's not being a buddy, but being a parent, and is able to, and giving the opportunity to that child to communicate.
Okay.
Just like this case.
Yeah.
The 4-year-old child said something.
Yeah.
Brave up.
So that's good.
And most people are thinking, well, gee, 4 years old, how are they thinking that way? They, trust me, they know things. They really do. And the child did the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. bless them. Yeah. Going forward, imagining from what I've heard, there's at least 2 families. I'm sure there could very possibly be more that have children who will be brought up in this case. Going forward to the court dates for Harry Goularte, what advice would you have for the parents and extended family of the victims to sort of keep it together and get the best outcome and get a conviction on this guy?
Well, if he's guilty.
If he's guilty, yes, if he's guilty.
I have to add.
I understand that from your, law enforcement point of view. I just
because we don't want the Salem witch trials.
Got it.
But that being said, the best thing a family can do is listen to the prosecutor or the witness coordinator.
Okay.
They will tell people when they should be in court, and if they say don't be in court, don't be in court.
Okay.
Because you don't want to fuel this fire. It's already big press anyway.
Yeah.
But let's not try it in the news.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? 1, don't try it there. 2, the news takes everything that happens, they take their own spin.
Right.
You could have 3 reporters, and trust me, I've read stuff that I've been involved in, and it rarely, if ever, was it accurate.
Mm-hmm.
They're human, but
yeah.
Going forward, every county has a witness coordinator. They have a prosecutor that's assigned to it. Usually there's pretrial motions that may be one prosecutor. Rarely do they take it all the way up the flagpole, but some counties do, do a vertical prosecution. So I don't know which way it's going to go, but they will keep people in. You should be here for this. And let's assume for the moment that there is a guilty conviction.
Right.
Found guilty by a jury, it appears. At that point, victims can make statements or
impact statements,
and that's really, really critical. It's important. Okay? But don't park at the courthouse. That is not doing you any favors. It doesn't mean that you don't have an interest in it, but your face shouldn't really be known until you're called. And the other part is, if you are a witness, you can't even be in the courtroom.
That's true. Yeah.
So, what do you accomplish? The best thing you can do is support the child in this and be there for that child. Let court take care of itself.
Yeah.
If you feel that you're getting the runaround, everybody has a boss. Santa Clara County has the district attorney, and if you feel that things aren't happening or whatever, you don't understand, you can always call a supervisor. That's not inappropriate, but just don't with every little thing. Try to grab a hold of reality.
They're really important.
But if you feel like you're getting avoided and things are happening, it's okay to ask the question.
Yeah. And let's say there was a conviction. I've heard that most counties have this. They have normally a fund that helps pay for counseling for victims of a crime.
The state of California does. Victims of violent crimes, which this fits into, there is and it goes through the DA's office, but it's actually a state fund that enables counseling, to get through it. So there was actually a proposition number attached to it, but 5 years later, I don't remember what the number is.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that fund is still there, because it's really important, especially for these young ones. I'm sure they'll need it. The whole families will. I think that's great advice. Keeping the family, trying to stay close knit, listening to the children, being there for each other, and having an open conversation like this, you know, even though many of the viewers and even us, we may have a difference of opinion in things or different walks of life. Like if we don't communicate and have conversations like this, we're not going to learn and grow from a situation and know how to handle everything. So I appreciate your expertise in this situation and your background, and I hope we can do it again, hopefully on a better situation. Maybe we'll see how this goes and if there's a conviction and follow-up.
You bet.
Okay, you guys got it there. Until next time, Jen with Convicted Hearts, remember, always keep your heart convicted.